Okay, first up is Anna. Okay, good work. I think the opener looks good. I am glad that you got uh, the shine thing working on the so that it wasn't bounded by a box. That looks better. Um, yeah, the opening camera move is good. I think it's good that you got shadows like this one in. Um, Oh, there's some other weird shadows. So I think there's some lights that you should turn. If there's other lights, you should turn shadows off for them. For example, it looks very strange to see this giant foot shadow. I don't know if that was intentional, or this shadow on here looks kind of unnatural because what would be casting that light? If there's sunlight in the scene, the sun would only be coming from one direction, and it wouldn't be coming from behind him to um, cast a shadow there, so there really shouldn't be these additional shadows in the scene. So I would turn shadows off for those lights. Like the foot tapping and the finger twiddling and the facial expressions here, and the neck cracking bit is good. Some sound effects could help a little bit. Yeah, and some good reactions here, and might be better if he kind of bended his body more than just rotated it from the hips. I think if the face was really pressed against the hand rather than having a gap between the hands and the head, that would be better. I like that he's kind of laughing at him. That comes across well. Yeah, it's good. It's got a nice twist to it at the end. It's clever and it's got some humor to it. So I think you've done a really nice job. Good work. Next up is George. Did that play from the beginning? It kind of seemed like it didn't. All right, so yeah, good work on this. Opener's looking good, and yeah, I think it transitions nicely into the first shot. Render looks okay. Looks like you did the hardware render, but that's fine. Be better if you could have some cast shadows there. I like the foot twist there, and some of the hand animation's good. Got some blinks and facial stuff going on, some head turns, so all that's good. And this was a really funny twist, so it was very unexpected, and I like the sort of comic way um, the horse falls, and this is a kind of a funny surprise that the guy ends up behind him. So yeah, it's a nice, clever twist on the end. So good work on that, and yeah, to be continued is a funny choice too. So yeah, I think all around this turned out pretty well. Um, I think there's always improvements you can do to the animation. You know, for example, when the body's there, like just make sure there's at least some body movement, either breathing or like a weight shift, from side to side. So even just a subtle bit of movement, so they don't look like a mannequin. And here you've got the head turning, but the body's still. And with the head, instead of going straight across, if you can kind of give it an arc shape when it rotates, it looks a little nicer, even if it's just subtle. So there's nice touches you can add, and as I mentioned, the cast shadows. But overall, this is looking good. Next up is Xana. All right, yeah, good work. The dramatic music really adds quite a lot to the drama of the piece, and yeah, I like that you've kind of spaced out the timing of those bullet holes. I think that's a nice improvement. It's good to have that train opening. It's a really nice opening shot for the camera. Yeah, you got a really complicated character working, so that's good. This is a good shot as well. I think that I probably wouldn't show that right here, that flip around. I'd sort of trim that out, cut before that, and just cut straight to this shot because it looks weird that she flips around all in one frame. And I think for shots like these, it's good that you have blinks, but if you could do some subtle movement, like a breath or kind of, you know, whatever, sort of stretching her arms or shifting her weight from one foot to the other, these kinds of things kind of help keep the character alive because they look a bit frozen now. And I think in the movements of something like the eyebrows, it looks like they're moving over just one frame. Like it's good that you're moving them and they show some good facial expressions, but it's weird how they kind of pop. The blinks are fine to be fast, and the eyeball movement is good to be fast, but eyebrows wouldn't be quite so fast. I like the angry expression on her there. That's good. And that was kind of a good surprise that this hat flew off. I like that. It looks like a string of pearls that she catches from shooting his hat off. I'm not sure of the physics of shooting in that direction, getting his hat to fly off and make that go in her hand, but it's a cartoon, so you get to do that stuff. Yeah, and I think that the turnaround looked a little bit robotic, but that also kind of, you know, works with the kind of dramatic seriousness of the moment. So, yeah, all around, I think really good job. Um, I think there's touches and stuff you can improve, but I think overall you've created a good piece. Okay, next up is Travis.
deserves a better class of criminal. I'm gonna give it to him. No! You'll see. I'll show you.
You see, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. You dig.
You know, for all that pirates are clever cogs, we are an unimaginative lot when it comes to naming things.
What?
I once sailed with a geezer, lost both of his arms and part of his eye.
What'd you call him?
Larry. And that was without even a single drop of rum. Drink up, me hearty Joe-o. Drink up, me hearty Joe-o.
So, all right, well, this logo is looking good. I probably would do one less flash, and as I said in all the previous critiques of this, you know, don't use this. It's weird that you have the camera and this in here, and it's sort of unnecessary. I mean, if you're going to do it, you would need to render it, but right now it's, you know, just the logo goes on for 17 seconds. That's not really necessary. And then the camera movements are a bit crazy. There's just way too much camera movement. It just keeps kind of flying around unnecessarily. And then I'm wondering, where did this character in this animation come from? Because you shouldn't be including, you know, animations that you didn't create. So I'm wondering, well, what's this from, or how did that get in there? And there's this weird, like, it looks like this was just cut out of something else because of this weird line here. It's really strange. I don't really understand what's going on there, or where this comes from, or how it kind of fits into your overall piece. This is the first I've seen of that. And then everything's a play last, nothing seems to be rendered. And then again, way too much camera movement here. I mean, just the camera just keeps flying around and around. And it doesn't look like you're using the same time. Then where did that animation come from? So I'd like to hear more about the sources of where all this stuff comes from and how it fits together. It doesn't really look like you're doing what was sort of assigned in the class. So I think I'd like to get, you know, some kind of explanation of where all this came from, and if you could send me your my files of your animation, I think that would be good, because I don't know what to credit you for on this right now. Next up is Jersey. All right, really good work. I think the sound effects do such a nice job of bringing this to life. You did a really good job with those. Um, yeah, opener looks good. I think we went through a few rounds of changes that you put in there, so that's looking good. Concerning the render, what I had recommended to several other people in the video critiques was to use hardware render 2.0 if you're struggling with the software render, and it'll just give you a much cleaner look than this. You could get rid of all the aliasing of the lines, this little stair step, and all the straight lines, diagonal lines. And you can get ambient occlusion, which will kind of give you sort of a bit of a shadowing around things. So it makes things look much nicer. So I recommend experimenting with Hardware Render 2.0. It's also very, very fast. It's almost as fast as a Play Blast. So I like how the camera pans with him, and I like how he kind of moves side to side and gives a kind of a cast a look back when he's walking away. That's a really nice touch. And I like the character point of view there. I thought that was a very clever camera shot. Yeah, and that camera works well. And he's got like a real glare, some good subtle facial expressions. Yeah. And then I kind of move into the clock. So really good use of camera. Maybe a bit too cropped on the top there. I might sort of pull back a little bit on this shot. This is a bit of an issue that, see, you've established, you kind of jump around here a little bit actually. So we've got, essentially, if he's walking out to screen right, then he should stay on screen right. And if he's kind of walking at the camera, but he's sort of walking to screen left, so he should stay at screen left. And now it's dead center, but suddenly he's on left, and he's on right, and then he's centered, and then you're breaking the 180-degree rule all over the place. Because now, again, he's screen left, he's screen right, but then you shoot him from this side and this side. So it's what you want to do is establish sort of one guy is on one side of the screen and one guy on the other side of the screen. So typically for something like this, you would draw an imaginary line down the center of the road and keep the camera on one side of it pointed at them. And kind of, you can get straight behind them or straight behind this, but then you don't want to go to the other side because it swaps. So I would, I think the use of camera is generally good, but I think the kind of left right, especially something like that, like showing from one side to the other, to me that's sort of crossing the 180 line rule. And also just kind of from a dramatic storytelling, he's shooting from screen left to screen right. He's shooting from screen left to screen right. You want them shooting at each other in the sort of screen direction. So I think while in general your use of camera is good, that breaking the 180-degree rule is not so good. I do like the hat coming off here. I think that's a nice touch. And I like the sound effect of the bullet hitting there as an ending. I thought that was clever. So we've got a lot of good stuff going on here. I think you could improve the renders, and I think you can improve some of your camera choices, and you can take the piece up to the next level. Next up is Jakemin. Okay, nice. So regarding the opener, I've given the same critique on each of these videos, and it hasn't changed. So I won't repeat myself. You can look back at those. Yeah, I think the render looks really clean. The shadows look good. The train, I think it pulls in much too fast. A train, an old steam train is going to pull in like much more gradually and come to a stop. So it's a little jarring how quickly it comes in. It's a good first camera move to set up the scene. I like the hand movements and the sort of neck cracking movements, and when it's good that you've got the facial stuff going, but you should also have little bits of body movement so they don't look so frozen. Even if it's a subtle amount of movement. And you're missing the texture here, and you should make sure your scene files in the scenes directory of the Silver City project folder so that it picks up all those textures. And set your project before you open your file. I'm not real happy with the camera. So if you kind of set up the camera so the character is more on this side, and then he can kind of has room to kind of point his gun, and there's sort of space in the frame itself for him to point his gun would be a little bit better. And I think, yeah, and yeah, I like the way he clutches his stomach and bends over and lands on his knees. I thought that was good animation, so good work on that. So yeah, it came together overall, and yeah, some few areas for improvement, but I think you did well. Okay, next up is Deonte. Okay, so yeah, the opener's good. I think the render looks okay, but I think you need to turn on the anti-aliasing, and I think it'd be a lot nicer looking. As far as the cameras look okay. I don't know what that's doing. I think that's the clock handle somehow. The clock thing ended up over here somehow. I like the facial expressions are good, and again, if you can get some body movement in there so they're not completely frozen, that's a good idea. There's some nice detail in the hand movement there, and that's kind of nice, and kind of real accurately got the finger on the trigger, so that's good. Same there. But I think it gets cut short at the end. I feel like you need a bit more of an ending on there. So, yeah, I would say a little improvement on the rendering, like getting anti-aliasing going, and then having an ending on there would help. But otherwise, came together well. Next up is Clive. Okay. Yeah, the first thing I noticed actually was the file name. It shouldn't just say last name, first name. It should have your last name and first initial. Not So that's like the template for it, but you actually have to put your name in there. Yeah, well, on this opener, as I mentioned last time, you want to get this so that blurring thing doesn't happen in the box, and you should be able to do that by pre-comping that layer in After Effects, then applying the effect to that new pre-comp layer, and that should solve that. Demonstrated on the last critique, I believe. The render looks pretty clean. You got some cast shadows in there, so that's good. The hand movement's good. It's good you got some facial expression. I like the hat tilt. That's a nice touch. I think it'd be better if the guns didn't. They seem to intersect the holster a bit, particularly that first one. So it'd be better if that was pulled out a little bit more carefully. And yeah, then I think it ends kind of abruptly. I think you should need to add some kind of interesting or clever ending on there. But yeah, overall came together. Next up is Vivian. Okay. So yeah, the opener looks good. I think, we talked about maybe some flash on the gun, maybe sound effects, maybe having the guns kind of not just rotate but jerk back a little bit, so you could still consider doing that. I think, the render could improve, maybe get, like a cleaner, more anti-aliased render, and some cast shadows would help with that. You've got that drifting camera, but it'd be good to get a little bit more movement on the cameras, because they're kind of characters, because a lot of these shots are almost like mannequins, just stock still, so you want to put at least some subtle movement there. I think that grabbing the gun could improve. It kind of like sort of pops right there, if you see that. I like this sort of camera move at the end. It kind of seals the piece off, so that's nice. So yeah, definitely areas for improvement, but yeah, overall came together. Next up is Melissa. Okay, yeah, really good work on this one. Um, yeah, the opener's good. I don't think that's changed much since we last saw it, and I like how you sort of follow the train coming in. Um, and Yeah, you got some shadows going and all that, and it's certainly a more complex than normal character and kind of a nice walk you've done there. I like that you've got additional characters involved, um, like, and I think this is kind of an interesting shot, but maybe it's too short and it's also such a close up. We don't necessarily know whose hand that is, but if you do want to do it, I think you need to lengthen it a little bit. I like the spit here and the white. That was a nice touch. And I like the neck cracking thing is always good. I think I might have left off that fly into the face thing. I don't think that was necessary. It's a bit distracting. I would have just cut to the clock without doing that fly in. And maybe too long of a pause between the first draw and the second. But I do like how he steps forward when he draws his gun. Not sure why the train shot in there. I found that a little odd. I think that it's great that you want the woman to come out, but if you didn't want to or weren't able to animate the, because she's not really properly running or stepping, she looks like she's sort of floating above the ground. So I think if you had to do that, I would use the camera to just show. Let me go back. Do a different shot where we don't see her feet, and then you can kind of get away with that a little bit better. I really like how he rolls over and his hat comes out of the way, and the way he lifts up his gun here. And yeah, the cutaway during the gunshot, I don't know, for some reason, I kind of get what you're doing, but I think maybe if you held longer on the cutaway, I don't know. And I think you could have held a little longer on a shot like the knife close up, because like, oh, she was coming to kill him. I see. Um, like that's why the other guy shot her, and then you understand the story better. I think if you just held on that a little longer, that would help. But yeah, really good storytelling idea, and nice plot twist. So, and ambitious project, getting all those other characters involved. So overall, I think you did a really nice job.